authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar.
Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Welcome to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia, Season 3. I am so elated that we are going to be able to interview multiple guests as we are discussing the year of self. During this year, we're going to talk about financial wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, the journey to authenticity, overcoming trauma, and so much more. So stay tuned. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and even comment on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, you can check it out on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. Take good care. We'll see you. Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I'm so glad that we have another episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about the trauma of relationships. That is unresolved trauma. A lot of people bring into relationships a level of trauma that hasn't been discussed or even exposed. They go into relationships with this idea that it's going to save them from a lot of things. It is going to hold them up and protect them. But what happens if you've never observed a healthy relationship? What happens if you observe a healthy relationship, but you don't think that it's attainable? I think about the movie Divorce in Black when I'm discussing relationships because a lot of people were complaining that the main actress was in a household that seemed to be loving and supportive and encouraging and Bible based. And her choice in a mate was one that she felt the need to be with, but he needed some fixing. He didn't have the experience of a healthy relationship. What he ended up having was a mom who was angry and controlling and demeaning to her male children. Probably her unprocessed trauma was being left with those male children. Probably her unprocessed trauma was trying to identify a value in her. Her unprocessed trauma was possibly not being heard. And in all those things, the behavior that she exemplified was anger and controlling. One of the things that we know is if your only anger, if anger is your only emotion, then that you're your only enemy because things that you're going to do and how you respond is going to be out of anger. So think about that as a baseline when you think about relationships and how angry someone can get because you don't they can get because you don't agree with them, because you don't honor whatever it is that they believe they need to be honored and respected for. Here's the thing. The one thing I always ask clients when they come to me for counseling for their marriage and relationship and even co-parenting, who taught you how to be in relationship? And what is your relationship like with yourself? You have to have a positive relationship with yourself. That means you have to know and understand and respect who you are. You have to appreciate the personhood of yourself. You have to love you. You have to be the hero in your life. It's a lot of pressure to put on someone else to show up in your life to fix all of the wounded parts that they didn't see. How would they have known that you had a wounded history? How would they have known that you came from an environment where mom was really mean and nasty or dad was a cheater? How would they have known that those characteristic flaws were present for you? They wouldn't unless you tell them that. There are no crystal balls in relationships. No one is going to guess where things are going wrong. I had a conversation with a client on yesterday, and we talked about a perspective that he presented on women that have multiple fathers of their children. And I shared with him my perspective is this. When people engage in relationships, they believe the story that they're being told. If you believe the story that, this person is coming into your life, they're planning to never leave you, that you all are moving forward with a happy ever after, you're operating in the belief of what that story is. The problem comes up when the storyline or the narrative changed and you weren't told that it was going to change. That is when chaos ensues, because you're still operating in this belief that, oh, I'm in a healthy, loving relationship. This man or this woman or this person is going to love me without any issue because that's what they said, right? However, somewhere something happened that caused that promise to not be kept. A woman can promise to be faithful and loving and nurturing and protecting of her space, learning how to operate in her feminine energy, and then all of a sudden she wakes up and masculine energy is coming forward because she's afraid that she has to be the leader. She's afraid that she's going to have to operate in what she saw her mother, maybe operate in when she was growing up, where mom was the head of the household. Mom had to make all the decisions. Mom had to be the one that sacrificed and loved and nurtured and was tough, the disciplinarian and all of those things. She absorbed that energy. And so when she enter into a relationship where she's trying to bring in all of this feminine energy, right? She's trying to love and she's trying to be protective and she's trying to build up and see the best in someone, and that someone is pushing away or being mean and nasty because their fear is their mama gonna show up. The mama that they grew up with that was mean and nasty and controlling. And they don't want to be controlled. Again, I go back and reference the movie Divorce in Black. Dallas didn't want to be controlled by his wife because he was already being controlled by his mom. His voice was whatever his mother and siblings told him, although he was the one that made it out. He was the one that had levels of success. He was the one that married the cute church girl, right? Well, oftentimes when we don't address the pain and infliction of wounds from relationships, we don't understand our own self-value and our own self-love, we end up being caught up in a relationship that is destructive. Right now, I'm seeing quite a few clients who are struggling in their relationship, and part of the theme of each of these couples is this. The wife went in with an expectation. The husband came in with his own expectation. She expected that she would be able to relax in the strength and the power of her spouse. And she had hoped that she wouldn't have to be her mom, that she wouldn't have to be the head, that she wouldn't have to be the decision maker, but she could be the support. And then the roles changed. It changed to the point where I didn't realize that I was making my wife be 70% of the relationship and I 30. My wife makes more money. My wife takes care of everything in the house. My wife takes care of the children. And I just couldn't understand why she would be so angry at me because I worked a different shift and all I would do is come home and go to bed. She would have to get her father to come and work out things that she wanted as part of the honey-do list. I didn't realize that I let her down when I didn't take her car to be serviced, when I knew that she had asked me multiple times. I thought she should have shown me more grace, is what he said. And what she responded was, I showed you more than enough grace because I believed in something inside of you that you didn't believe in yourself. You didn't believe that you could rise to the occasion as the leader of the household. And now I'm tired. And I've heard this resounding situation play out with multiple couples. A lot of times because there was not a direct observation of a healthy relationship, healthy communication. In this particular situation, dad had shown the daughter how to run things because he never wanted her in a situation where she wouldn't know how to. In that same situation, mom coddled the boy. And we know in the African community, that African American community, that women often coddle their sons but teach their daughters how to run things. And then we have a group of males who says, well, you're operating in your masculine energy. Here's the secret. Women don't want to operate in a masculine energy. We want to be feminine. We want to be soft. Even if we're leaders on our jobs, when we come home, we want to have that soft life. We want to be able to trust you to take over and do everything. The problem comes in when you're supposed to be taking over and doing everything. We end up having to jump back in and do it because of some lapse of judgment or a lack of push through. When you see most successful relationships, what you see is everybody in their lane, everybody operating at their highest potential, supporting one another, being able to accept when their ebb and flow may be a little off, understanding the power of masculinity and femininity, not as a divisiveness, but as an encourager and a foundation of empowerment. See, here's the thing. I had someone ask a question on a Facebook post that said, so if a man cooks and cleans, is that feminine energy? And initially, I wanted to laugh at the individual, but I decided to take his statement seriously. Why would that be considered masculine or feminine energy? Mothers who are the only one in their home raising a boy child should make sure that their sons are equipped to make a meal, so he'll never have to depend on anyone else to make a meal for him. He should be equipped on how to launder his clothes so that he doesn't have to depend on that. He should be equipped on how to lead a household. Likewise, women raised in a household, girls raised in a household should also be equipped on how to cook so she would never have to depend on someone to make a meal for her. She should also be equipped on how to make money and how to make things run so she doesn't have to have anyone to depend on. However, when they merge together, they're supposed to be able to align their strengths and their areas of improvement so that it could better the relationship. When the battle comes up, one needs to feel more dominant than the other. It shouldn't be about dominance in a relationship. It should be about respect, honor, trust, and protection. Most people don't see that. Most people don't get that because they've gone through this fantasy land of looking for a hero to save them. And yes, men look for a hero to save them just as much as women do, because they're looking for someone to come in and lift them up and build them in places they hadn't been built before. And they're hopeful that that woman would do that. And likewise, she's hopeful that he comes in as a hero of protection. Well, how would they do that? How would either do that if they've never had that experience, if no one ever taught them? So let's go back to the Divorce in Black. What we saw in that movie was a young lady whose parents presented as a healthy relationship. They were perfect and pristine and all that kind of stuff. And they raised this young lady with the hopes of her achieving any and every goal that she wanted to, with the hopes that she could marry someone that could carry on the legacy of being her protector and her lead. In that process of the marriage, the individual that she chose to be with didn't know how to honor the softness in her. See, she operated in that feminine energy that so many men say that they want. She lifted him up at times where he was demeaning and dogmatic. She supported him even in the times of his grief. She loved him even with his flaws, and yet in her femininity, it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because he had not tapped into his own need for healing in order for him to be in a relationship. He had not tapped into the fact that his mother was extremely toxic. His mother was controlling. He was still that very little boy playing in the front yard, ready to beat up whomever mother pointed out. He had not progressed as a man other than chronologically. He had not understood how to stand up and have a voice for himself. And yet this movie caused a lot of people to talk negatively about the wife and then show some level of empathy for the husband. Well, anytime you push a bear to a wall, he's going to come out fighting. When the wife, and I don't know why I can't remember her character name, but Megan, when Megan got fed up, after she had done all that she could do to try to support his toxic family, after she had done all that she could do to live in a soft life, she had gone through physical and mental abuse, verbal abuse, and attacks, and yet she stood in it because she had believed the observation of the marriage of her parents, who probably had some issues at some point, but she believed that she needed to stay. She had no way out. When her mother had to read what her child had gone through, she understood her failure. She understood that she failed to actually support her daughter and give her the courage to know you don't have to stay in an abusive relationship. She understood that she failed to give her daughter a place, a safe space to have a voice, to come and let her parents know exactly what she was enduring and going forward. She understood as a mother that she failed to really give her insight into the workings of a relationship. She understood that. That's why she grabbed her and she held her and she apologized, because she knew that she had not given her a strong enough value and foundation in understanding relationship, because she was so busy people pleasing and trying to be everything to everybody and still be this perfect princess that she stopped being her own self. A lot of people talk about the friend who also was in a toxic relationship of infidelity. The friend kept notes. And some people say, well, the friend was foul for that. Well, was she really? If I have a friend that is going through and don't have a voice, but I know that she has a supportive family, I may, if I couldn't get through to my friend, have a conversation with one member of their supportive family saying, listen, y'all need to open your eyes and see what's going on. That, to me, is a friend. But other people say she should have stayed in her lane. Well, should she have stayed in her lane if she had died because of the verbal, physical, and mental abuse? Should she have stayed in her lane and watched her friend be at a space where she felt unsafe to even go to work because she never knew? Likewise, the husband of the friend, I consider as a weak friend, because he knew of the dysfunction of his friend, but yet he did like so many males, stayed in his lane. He never challenged the truth about how bad his friend was. He never challenged the truth about where his mama played a role, his brothers played a role. See, in that little small town that they were in, everybody knew that that woman and her sons were horrible. They had no empathy when one was killed because they had terrorized. But his friend knew that this is how he was. And yet, he never said, man, you need to leave that girl alone. You need to go ahead and get out of this relationship because you're not treating her right. He couldn't say that because then his card would be called on his cheating. You see how this wraps around and how it's very important for you to understand the people that you allow to influence your relationship. You have to understand the many dynamics that I saw of the movie from a therapist lens as well as a relationship coach. What I saw was a bunch of individuals who had no idea who they were within themselves and subsequently in relationship. I saw a lot of brokenness in individuals that gave themselves permission to be a part of relationships. However, they didn't know how to be a part of the relationship within themselves. So here's a couple of keys that I want you to walk away with. As you journey through relationships, as you journey through maybe situations that have you questioning relationship, you have to start with, what's my relationship with myself? Do I love me enough to see me and to honor what I need in my life? Do I understand what I need from a relationship, from a partner? Do I understand what I give in a relationship as a partner? Am I balanced in my thinking? Do I seek wisely counsel about relationships? Am I truthful with who I am? And can I trust me with me in a relationship? In relationships, it has to boil down to your self-assessment. Who am I? What am I doing in that relationship? And what do I need? When you can answer some of these questions, you give yourself a better footing for a positive relationship interaction. The other thing is, you can't fix or change nobody. You can't make them be better in relationship. You can extend from the work that they're doing for themselves in relationship, but you can't make them better. You can't fix what's ailing them, especially when they don't even know that there needs to be a fix, especially when they have not assessed that anything is wrong. Sometimes you can be raised in such a toxic environment that you don't see that there's anything wrong with your thinking. I often think about, as a single mother, how my mother laid a foundation that wasn't filled with hate, that wasn't filled in discord. Like, she never talked bad about my dad, even though I observed where his areas of failure were in the lives of his children. She never talked about that. But she also didn't talk about her feelings with me. She also had to operate in a place of strength. So I had to learn in my life how to balance strength and empowerment while being supportive. Because if I had taken on the idea of the strong Black woman as a single parent, I might too have been angry like a lot of single mothers are. I might too have been fighting like a lot of single mothers are to prove a point, because there's already this stigma about a single mother that has people believing that you're just loose, that you would just lay with anyone. Nah, that's not the truth. The truth is, we believe the lie that was sold. We believe the story that they cared. See, for me, I had discussions about being in long-term relationships and not being a single mother, because that's not something that I strived for. It's what I ended up having to do, and I don't regret it one moment. But I also will not allow anyone to make it about me and saying that I failed because I have two fathers. Nah, here's the truth. Everybody gets a right to choose. I chose to believe the stories that were presented, and then subsequently I ended up raising my kids on my own. without child support, without extra support from their sides. And it was okay because they turned out very well. I didn't allow myself to be consumed with anger. And so when I go into relationships, I lay out my boundaries, what my expectations are, and what I bring to the table. Although I balance masculine energy and feminine energy quite well, I recognize that whenever I have to go back and be the leader, I get frustrated that I have to turn that masculine energy back on. And so I didn't leave the relationship because I don't want to operate in a space of having to be masculine when my position that I prefer is one of a feminine energy in a world that will allow me to be my absolute best self. So when you think about relationships, you have to think about, what am I bringing to the table? What do I need in a relationship, and what do I understand in a relationship? So take some time after you listen to this podcast and go back and think about, where am I in relationship with myself and in relationship with my mate? Take good care. Continue to check out Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. This is season 3. We have a few more podcast episodes that are coming up to finish out the year. We'll be discussing this election cycle again. We'll also go back and discuss a little bit more about relationships and releasing the bonds of trauma. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and follow on YouTube, Spotify, all of my social media pages, Marcia Blaine or Authentically Peculiar with Marcia B. I look forward to interacting with you in the comments. If you also are looking for a motivational speaker to really address trauma, relationships, and empowerment, hit your girl up. I'm available. You take good care. Truly, it is again a pleasure for you to support Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Take good care. Follow us on your favorite streaming app.